Hello and welcome back. You're watching Park City Television. I am joined by Debbie Burkett Davis. Her father fought in World War II. His name is Leo George Burkett, no longer with us, but living on in the stories shared by his dear family. So, Debbie, you have a very special incident, quite a miraculous one at that. Many, and you're going to share a couple of those with us today. And he was a B-17 pilot. This was quite the job, excessively dangerous, right?
Yes. B-17 planes were heavy. They were loaded with very heavy bombs, and they had a gunner. They had some equipment on board the plane that would shoot back, but it was very limited. And because they were big and large and lumbering airplanes, they couldn't maneuver very quickly in order to get out of the way of the German fighter pilots, and so there were a lot of casualties on the B-17 side. And in fact, I often ask, or after I started learning about my dad's story, I said, you know, what was it like? How can we know what it was like for you? And he said, the movie Memphis Belle came out, and I said, was that what it was like? And he goes, no, because you rarely flew with the same crew, because they would be shot down and injured, and so he was always transferring from plane to plane, crew to crew. But he said the movie that most accurately depicts it of what life was like flying a B-17 was 12 O'Clock High. But the story I really wanted to tell was he was flying a mission over Peenemünde, which is about 50 miles, or to Peenemünde, and it was about 50 miles north of Berlin, and they were taking a lot of fire from the enemy, and a shell came up through the bottom of his B-17 and should have exploded and should have blown them out of the air, but it didn't. And for years and years, he never knew why. And it wasn't until he saw the movie that Steven Spielberg did of Schindler's List that he realized he was probably his plane and his crew were probably the benefactors of one of the shells that had been stuffed with fabric rather than explosives, and that's probably what saved their lives.
And describe the context for that, why they were stuffing those with fabric.
Well, they were prisoners of war, being forced to work for the Germans, and they were working in the factories, the ammunition factories, and they were loading the shells with explosives. But because they were prisoners of war, they were doing everything they possibly could to sabotage the Germans, and so whenever they had an opportunity, they would try to sabotage them, and one of the ways was stuffing the shells with fabric rather than with the explosives.
That is just insanely incredible to hear that. And what does that do to you to hear a story like that about your father?
Well, as you can see, I get quite emotional because it makes me understand what my father and all of the other young fighting soldiers, men and women, went through. How they put their lives on the line every single day to protect this country and to protect all of us. And I wouldn't be here if we hadn't had such great friends in the Allies, and if we hadn't had such dedicated young men fighting for the country, and women.
That's right. It is so great to chat with you about this. We're going to go to a quick break. When we get back, we'll hear more stories from the life of Leo George Burkett, who fought in World War II.